Good morning. This is Mitch. It's October 2nd, and this is the wing for my new Calypso. It's a Hannah Pretner plane that's put out by Model Tech, and he won the World Championships in '82 and '83, I believe it was, or maybe '81, '82. Anyway, I'd like to put strip ailerons in it here, and I angled these torque arms so it would clear the rudder and elevator servos, because the rudder and elevator servos had to be located at the aft end of the compartment above the wing, because the airplane has a long nose moment, and I'm putting a heavy engine in the front, relatively heavy engine with a Nova Rossi 61. So anyway, that's nothing unusual. In this plane, I decided to try mechanical retracts, Robarts being probably the industry standard, so I chose Robarts. And normally your retract servo is mounted like this, you know, sideways like that, laying on its side. But for this airplane, they give you these wheel well liners here. These things here, which are pretty cool. Just you know, thin plastic, and so these are kind of nice. It's a nice touch when they're in there. So let's see. This is a starboard wing, so this will go in here. Sorry about moving the camera around. That goes in there real nice like that. Now what they call for in the plans is for the push rod for the retracts to run in the wheel well like this. And they say to put a bend in it so it clears the ball connector, I mean the clevis, not the clevis, the wheel collar there, because you know how the wheel collar protrudes, you know, a little bit. And so they say take the push rod and run it across here, and then, you know, in the other side here through a hole, and then to the servo. Well, I thought that would look a little less than desirable. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to run the push rod underneath the wheel well, which means it has to have a greater dog leg in it, and I had to go down inside the foam, and so none of that was really unusual. However, if I'm going to run it underneath the wheel well, then that means the motion of the push rod can't be such that it's going, when it goes, get this right, when it goes back and forth like this, it can't go up and down like this on the servo, which would happen if the servo was mounted sideways like they commonly are with retracts. It would go like this, and so that would result in a vertical path of the push rod and tend to interfere with the wheel well. And since there isn't much room left between the top of the wheel well, or the bottom of it, you might say, and the top of the wing, so that necessitated mounting the retract servo upright like this, like you normally would for an aileron or something. And so then the problem was to get everything adjusted right and cut out right and all that stuff so it would work freely, and getting the stroke right is really tough for mechanical retracts, because there's no leeway on either end. It has to be exactly right. And you know, if you've done retracts, that the arm moves to, say, it moves one direction and you get full extension of the retract, and then it moves the other direction to get full extension that way, or retraction, whichever it is. But then it goes a little bit further than that on each end to lock it in position either up or either down. and you have to make damn sure that you allow for that every single time you're adjusting it. So the servo wheel travels 180 degrees, and Robart tells you, in this case, with these retracts, that you have to have a 1 1/8 inch stroke. And so you have to get a wheel, a servo wheel or arm that yields 1 1/8 inch of stroke when it travels its 180 degrees. And so that necessitates looking at your different servo wheels that you have in a package of, you get a gazillion servo wheels, and in this case this is a, you can see I've accumulated a few servo wheels over the time. These are all high-techs, but like these are the servo wheels for this servo, and these are the big ones, because it's a digital servo, so they're bigger. So anyway, you got to find the right servo wheel and the holes spacing that when it cycles at 180 degrees, it yields 1 1/8 inch to travel. And when you've done that, you think you're cool and you got it licked. Well, that's not the way it works. Because after you monkey with it, you find out it's not that simple. So you have to just use trial and error and do a bunch of adjustments. Then of course, you have to have the length of the push rod right, which is another thing to adjust. So anyway, after doing all that, I finally got it so it works great and all's well, and I'm happy. And I triple checked everything, because when it's in there and all hooked up and you think you got it working right, there may be a little bit of binding on one or the other. You may not have the travel just exactly right. So you have to take each one independently and check it over and over again and just make, quadruple sure that on each end of the stroke, for that servo, or for that retract on that side, that it is working properly and that you're getting that last little bit of movement on each end so that it's locked either up or either down. So anyway, I did all that. It took forever, but I got it. And what I did with this, I wish I had taken a picture of this servo box I made. I took the servo here and I made basswood ends out of it, which I don't have any of that basswood left here. But I take a 1/4 by 1/2 basswood and I make the ends of the box for the servo, and that's what the servo screws go down into. And then I took hard balsa, a 1/4 inch balsa, ran it front to rear to make the sides of the box. And so then I put a single-edged razor blade between the servo and the sides of the box so that it gives it just a little tiny bit of spacing. And so I had a box that's almost a net fit for the servo. So that means any side loads that are put on the servo are not, you're not relying on the screws to secure the servos. You have this box which has confined the servos. And so it can't strip out the servo screws. And so then I put it in there and I use oh shit, I've got a few different kinds of adhesives there, a whole bunch of this is a tight bond polyurethane liquid glue, and it works like a champ. It's like Gorilla Glue in that and that it expands. Okay, here's a good old Gorilla Glue. And it expands like Gorilla Glue, but it doesn't dry quite as hard, so it's more easily sandable, or you can cut extra out with like an X-Acto or whatever. And so the trick is, when you're putting it in, is to have some isopropyl alcohol around, either 70% or 90% like this, and have a paper towel wet with that for cleanup. And so you clean up some of the excess, and you can see how it kind of bubbles out in here, So what I do is I take a paper towel, cut in little pieces, and I have a long pair of needle nose like these here, and I grab a paper towel, get inside of there, and wipe out the extra tight bond as it's bubbling out, as it's expanding. And so by removing it then, instead of waiting until it dries, you don't have something hard you have to try to remove by cutting or grinding. So, but the nice thing about these types of glue is they do fill any void in there, plus it's lighter than epoxy. So when you're all done, you have a lighter installation overall. So anyway, that's what I did. And this is, pardon me. So I'll show you how they work. And I'll even put the wheel wells in here just for funsies. So that's in there, all nice. And these are kind of simple. They'll look nice when it's all painted and everything. You can't tell they're cheap plastic. So those are in there. And well, the other complication was, you wonder what this big hole here is, this big cavity? Well, that's for the tune pipe. For this airplane, the pipe is mounted on the underside of the fuselage because it's an inverted engine with a rear exhaust. And so what they suggest for this airplane, or what they tell you to do, is this is the Nova Rossi pipe, great big old thing. It's muffled, needless to say. The back end of it's, got the muffling on it. And then this is a Max tune pipe, which I really like Max. So this is the Max pipe. And of course the Max pipe is significantly lighter. Now the diameters of the two pipes are the same. And the divergent cone here, the cone angle is very close to the same for both, as you would expect, since those engines of 61 or 65 displacement are of similar power curves, generally speaking, give or take. And now this one's longer because it has, it looks like this inside, I'm sure. And then I got to talk to this girl. She gets lonesome. So anyway, so inside this Nova Rossi pipe, it looks just like this. But then they add this section here, you can see the seam. And this piece here, no doubt, is just attached to this. And so there's baffling inside. If you actually look inside the stinger there, you can see some like louvers inside for silencing. So anyway, the kit calls for sinking the pipe into the wing, and so you hog it all out, and you think, oh geez, that's really sacrificing the strength. But this airplane, even though it's sheeted foam, it has a spar here. It has a plywood spar here, and it's got another spar back here. So that's how you get away with hogging it out. And so anyway, it's all measured, marked, and everything. And that's where the pipe will go in, just like that, and it looks pretty sexy. And that, needless to say, took some doing. So, of course, you can see the servo is pretty darn close. So, I had to mount the engine on the engine mount, and then put the engine mount on the fuselage with the right side thrust, down thrust, and all that other stuff. Get that all squared away, and put the pipe on it, and then a trial and error method of cutting the wing and then sanding it and everything to make a valley for the pipe. And then when I got all done, then I took a piece of 1/16 balsa and put it in here, front to rear, through here. And so then I could place the two servos in, the retract servo and the aileron servo, and I knew I had 1/16 of clearance between the metal edge, the surface of the pipe, and the underside of the servo, which would allow for glassing. Now this kit gives you these things here, two pieces of fiberglass that are kind of cut, and it's kind of flexible. I thought, what in the dickens are these? Well, it turns out what these are is this one here. I don't know if you can see it very well. That piece there goes in on the side of the fuselage. This piece here, which is curved, right here, this goes in here. You put it in this valley here. And so that strengthens it and gives it a real nice shape and everything, makes it look, semi-professional. And that's what that is. So this kit is quite interesting. And they give you a real trick little cowl for it, which is pretty sexy. And then in the back, it's open, and the underside of the fuselage is open to allow for the breathing. And guess what that is, race fans? You would never guess what that is. Those are air brakes. Air brakes. No joke. I've got a dirty birdie here. This is my dirty birdie. And I'll just set the fuselage down here. That is the fuse for my dirty birdie, and it's actually just a dirty birdie. I serve with dirty birdie wing and foam, or wing and stab cores, foam cores, and I sheeted them. And the fuselage is basically a dirty birdie design, but I altered it. I shortened the nose a moment, and I made it. It's not as tall, and I strengthened the front of it with a plywood doubler, and I anhedral the stab, and I changed the fin design and all that stuff, and I put wing fillets on it, and a turtleneck, and it has a cockpit, and I have a bar bead I'm going to put in it like I had in the other one, with an instrument panel and all that stuff, and then it's got a fuel window there to see the fuel level, and I've also got a nice little hatch here. With a real good hatch latch here. I got it open. It almost takes 2 fingers to do it, but it fits really well. And inside there you see the Perry pump and the tank, and it's got a big tank, a 16-ounce tank. And so that's an OS AX65, and OS AX65 and a Max unmuffled tune pipe, and it comes off. It's a side mount, of course, needless to say, like that, right? So anyway, I'll set this down. And then here is the fuse for the Calypso. And you can see the Novarossi 61 inverted, and then the header, and you can see how the header is right underneath and inset into the fuselage like that. That looks pretty cool. And so you can understand how the pipe has to be inset into the wing, which it is. So I got all that figured out. And so anyway, that brings us to this point. Now you get to hear and see these retracts work. So pretty clean, pretty simple, and there is no slop, race fans. See that? I think these have an adjusting screw. This one's got a little more slop than the other one, but it does so on both ends. And most of the retracts have a small adjusting screw in them, and I have to take this retract out and look at this adjusting screw. So it's nothing wrong with the push rod lengths on either end of their travel that's resulting in that slop. But that's how they work, and I'm pretty happy. So the mechanics are so simple, so easy. And I put a big retract servo, and that's a high-tech retract servo, 180-degree retract servo, so it's got twice the torque that Robart recommends for a retract servo. So anyway, so much for that. Thought you enjoyed seeing it. Thank you very much.